Yeah, screen is visible.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good morning once again. So, agenda for today's class. So, we'll continue with the few more SIGBAR XC programming example, and then we'll start the actual syllabus content, that is assemblers. Here we'll discuss the various steps involved in the design and implementation of the assemblers. Okay. So then basic assembler functions, the assembler tasks. Okay. And then we'll discuss a simple SIG assembler. Okay. So the various steps involved in the design of a simple SIG assembler. So first, let me continue with a few more example of SIGBAR XC programming example. Okay. So we are discussing the arithmetic operations on SIGBAR XC. So here in this program, we are writing a sequence of instructions to set beta equals alpha plus INCR minus 1 and delta equals gamma plus INCR minus 1, okay, where alpha, beta, gamma, delta, INCR are one word variables. So first, let us write a sequence of instructions to set beta equals alpha plus INCR minus 1. Okay. So this is in SIGBAR XC machine. So what to do? So you need to load alpha and INCR in the registers. Okay. So what I will do, I will load the INCR, the content of INCR into the register S, okay, using the LDS instruction. And so I will load the content of alpha into register A using LDA instructions. Okay. So load into register A the content of alpha. Okay. Now the content of alpha and INC are in register S and A. Okay. So then you can add it. Okay. So because we are doing alpha plus INCR, no, you can add the register content using the instruction add register. Okay. So don't use add because we are adding registers. You have to choose the add R instruction. Okay. Add register, which register? The register S, comma, the register A. Note that I'm audible, students?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So as I said, all arithmetic operations are performed with register A or involves register A with the result being stored in the register A itself. Okay. So when you are using the add R instruction, no, then register A must be involved. Okay. So one of the operand must be in register A. Okay. So in our example, alpha is in register A. Okay. And here in the add R instruction, no. So S and A are the operands. Okay. And which is the source operand here? The source operand is the register S, and the destination operand is the register A. Okay. So as I said, the addition of alpha and INCR results must be in the register A. Okay. So you have to add R. Okay. You have to specify add R S comma A only, not reverse A comma S, because you have to keep the result in the register A only. Okay. So S is the source register here, and the register A is the destination register. Okay. So data flows from register S to register A. So now we have added alpha and INCR. Okay. And the result is in the register A. Okay. You have to subtract the result from 1. So how to do that? Using sub instruction. Okay. Subtraction instruction. Okay. So then sub instruction will add, will subtract 1 from the content in the register A. Okay. Now the result is again, this sub is also an arithmetic instruction. So where is the result now? Result is in the register A only. Okay. From register A, you have to store into the desired destination, that is beta. Okay. So store the register A into the destination memory location beta. So that completes the sequence of instruction to set beta equals alpha plus INCR minus 1. So next sequence of instruction is to set delta equals gamma plus INCR minus 1. Okay. Now the register array is available for use. Again, load either gamma or INCR into the register A. Okay. So I'm loading the gamma into the register A. Okay. And INCR is already loaded into the register S. No need of once again loading the INCR into the register S. Okay. It is already loaded. You have to load gamma into the register A. Okay. So now register A is having gamma and register S is having INCR. Okay, you can add them using add R instruction, add registers. Okay, add register S comma A. Now the result of addition is in the register A. Okay, and you have to subtract 1 from the register A. So use the subtraction instruction. Okay, subtract the 1. Okay, so you can use the immediate addressing to specify this value 1 as part of the instruction. Okay, this subtraction instruction is an immediate addressing instruction. Okay. Now the result is in the register A. From register A is stored into the desired destination. Destination here is the delta, which is one word variable. Okay, so store the register A into delta. Okay. That's it. Any doubts here in this program? No doubts?
No, sir.
Next, another SIGBAR-XC example. Okay, simple looping and indexing operations on SIGBAR-XC. So we will write a program that copies one string to another string. Okay, so the same program as we did for standard version of SIG we will use. Okay, so that is copying a 11-byte character constant into another character constant. Okay, so what is that 11-byte character constant? Test string. Okay, the value is test string. Okay, which is stored into the variable str1. So str1 is a 11-byte string. Okay, which is declared using the assembly directive byte. Okay, so this str1 is a nothing but a 11-byte character string or character constant. Okay, so you have to copy this str1 into str2. So then you have to reserve space for str2. How do you reserve space for str2? Using the assembly directive RESP, reserve bytes. So how many bytes you have to reserve? Since we are copying a 11-byte string, you have to reserve 11 byte. Okay. So then how do you copy it? You have to copy the 11-byte character string one by one. Okay, by moving the character in the string one by one. Okay, so here is the program. Okay, so first initialize some general working register. Okay, make use of general working register available in SIGBAR-XC. So we'll load the general working register T, that is register T, using LET instruction with a value 11. So instead of generating a one-word constant, so what you can do, you can make use of the immediate addressing. Okay, benefit. Okay, so you can load the value immediately into the register T using immediate addressing. Okay, so initialize register T to 11. Okay, so why do we need to initialize register T with 11? Because how many bytes you have to copy? So totally 11 bytes you have to copy. Okay. So this register T holds the count of characters to be copied. Okay. So 11 characters or 11 bytes have to be copied. Okay. Then one more thing is, so string is nothing but, as I said, it is an array. Okay. You have to copy the string character by character. So we need an index value. Okay. In order to point to the next character while copying. So the index value is stored into the register X, because register X is always used for addressing, no? So better you have to use the register X to hold the index value. Okay. So load the register X with the value 0, again using immediate addressing. Okay. Hash indicates that it is an immediate value. Okay. So load into register X the immediate value 0. Okay. Now X is initialized with value 0. Okay. Then start copying the character in string str1 into str2. Okay. One by one. So how to do that? Using LDCH and STCH instruction. So load the first byte of the string str1 into rightmost 8-bit of register A. So that is what the LDCH instruction will do. Okay. So LDCH str1 comma x. Okay. X is nothing but the index value. Okay. In the first loop, x will be 0. Okay. And then we are pointing the first byte of str1. Okay. Now that is available in the first byte is available in the register A. From register A, you have to copy it into the first byte of str2. Okay. So how to do that? Using STCH instruction. Store the register A into the str2. Okay, the string str2. And now you have copied 1 byte. Now you have to check whether you have copied all the 11 bytes or not. So how to do that? You have to compare the index value which is in register X with the count of the characters or bytes, okay, which is in the register T. So compare the value in X with the value in T. So how to do that? So there is an instruction called, instead of using CMP now, we will make use of another instruction called TIXR. Okay. So this TIXR in standard version of SIC machine it is TIX. In case of SIC bar X it is TIXR. Okay. But because we are comparing the two register, no, it is TIXR. Okay. So and it performs two functions, TIXR. So what are those functions? First, it will add 1 to index because we have to point to the next byte in the string, no, string str1. So it will add 1 to the index and compare this new value of the index register with 11. So where is 11? 11 is in which register? Register T. You have to specify the register name. Okay. So it will compare the value in X with value in T. Okay. And it will set the condition code depending based on the test results of the test. Okay. And suppose if the value in index register is less than the register T, then it means that you have not copied all the 11 bytes. So what is the conditional jump instruction you have to execute? Jump if less than. So jump if less than. Okay. Go on copying. Okay. So go to this label. Okay. Move character. Okay. So this label you have to give it to which instruction? LDCH instruction. Okay. Again, copy the next byte from str1 into str2. Okay. Repeat this process. This process is repeated until what? X becomes 11. Okay. When both the register becomes 11, no, the condition code is set to false. Okay. So like that, you have to copy one string into another string. So any doubts here? No doubts?
No, sir.
Let us get into the actual syllabus. Okay. So far, whatever we have discussed now, it is just a prerequisite for learning the assembler thing. Okay. So what is an assembler? So in this topic, we'll discuss the design and implementation of the assemblers. Okay. So what is an assembler? Assembler is a system software which converts an assembly language program to its equivalent object code. Okay. You just look at the diagram here. Okay. It shows the role of assembler here. Okay. So what is the role of assembler? So assembler is a program that accepts an assembly language program as input, which is nothing but a source program. Okay. and produces its machine language equivalent, which is nothing but the object code, okay, along with the information for the loader, okay. So this object code later will be given to linker in order to combine the object files, if any, okay, and then linker will produce the executable code, okay, and this executable code will be loaded into memory by the loader, okay. So this is the role of the assembler, okay, in the program development or the software development, okay. So then what do you mean by assembly language? Anybody? Why assembly language is required? Anybody? Why assembly language is required? As you know that a processor understands only the machine language instructions, which are strings of zeros and ones, okay. However, machine language is too obscure and complex for using in the program development or the software development, okay. Instead, we will use the assembly language, okay. So what do you mean by assembly language? So it is a language in which opcodes, that means operation codes and operands, are given in the form alphanumeric symbols instead of zeros and ones, okay. And these alphanumeric symbols will be known as the mnemonic code or opcode, okay. So examples are like ADD, add, for addition, okay, SUB for subtraction, etc. Okay, they are called as mnemonic code or the opcode, okay. But the computer cannot understand the assembly language code, okay. It understands only strings of zeros and ones, isn't it? Okay, so computers cannot understand assembly language code until it is translated into machine language. Then, which is the program that is required to translate the assembly language code into the machine language code? The assembler. So the assembler is a program which converts an assembly language code into its machine language equivalent or the object code. Then what are the basic assembler functions? Okay, so simply put, assembler translate the mnemonic language code to its equivalent object code. Mnemonic language code, in the sense, the symbolic code, okay. So translate the symbolic code to its equivalent, the object code. And the next function is assigning machine addresses to symbolic labels. So wherever it finds the symbolic labels, no, so it will generate machine addresses for them. Okay. So this is in simple terms, okay, the basic assembler functions. So in a broader way, this is how you list the assembler functions. Okay. Broadly, the translation of source program to object code requires us to accomplish the following functions. Okay. So how many functions are there? 5 functions. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So there are 5 assembler functions. So which are those? So first one, convert the mnemonic operation codes to their machine language equivalents. Okay, for example, if you observe the SICK example program here, okay, at the bottom, okay, say for example, at line number 10, we have instruction called STLRET-ADR. Okay, say for example, it will convert the mnemonic operation codes to their machine language equivalents, which is the mnemonic operation here at line number 10. STL is a mnemonic code, okay, or mnemonic opcode. Okay, so this will be converted into machine language equivalent. So what is the machine language equivalent of STL? It is 14. Okay, so 14 is the machine language equivalent of STL. Then the next function. Okay, so in the first step, it will convert the symbolic opcode to the object code. Then in the second step, it will convert the symbolic operands to their equivalent machine addresses format. For example, if you consider the same example here below, okay, so it will translate RET ADR symbol. See, STL instruction is having the operand as this RET ADR, okay, which is a symbol, okay, and where it is defined. So this RET ADR is defined at line number 95. Okay, so see here, RET ADR is defined at line number 95, which is a one-word variable. Okay, so it will convert the symbolic operands to their equivalent machine address. So whatever the address generated for this RET ADR, no, okay, so it will be added to this the mnemonic operand STL. Okay, then this object code for complete instruction is generated. Okay, STL RET ADR. Okay, then the next function. Okay, so that is about the second function. The second function is to assign the machine addresses to symbolic labels. Okay, and then the third function, build the machine instruction in proper format. Okay, so you have to put the translated instruction in proper format. Okay, so there is a format given for a SIG assembler. Okay, so you have to put the translated instruction into that format. We'll get to know what is that format later. Next function is convert the data constants specified in the source program into their internal machine representation. That means you have to generate the data values defined by which assembler directives, byte, then word, and so on. If you observe the program below here, at line number 80, we have generated a 3-byte constant here. Okay, so that 3-byte constant is nothing but EOF, stand for end of file. Okay, it is generated using the byte assembler directive. Okay, okay, so how many byte constant it is? 3-byte constant. Okay, EOF. Okay, so you have to convert this data. This is a data constant. Okay, you have to convert this data constants into their internal machine representation. Internal machine representation is nothing but, so this EOS is a character constant, no? So how it is represented in the machine internally? They are represented as the decimal value of the ASCII code of the characters. Okay, so the decimal value of the ASCII code of E is 45, and then for O it is 4F, and then for this F is 46, like that. You have to convert this data constant, okay, into the internal machine representation. Then after this step, you have to write the object program and assembly listing. That means assembler output includes an optional listing of the source program and an object file. So that is the meaning. Any doubt here in assembler functions? Students, are you with me?
No doubts, sir.
No doubts. Okay, thank you. So let us start with the construction of a simple SIG assembler. Okay. So before we start constructing the simple SIG assembler, no, there are some difficulties. Okay, with respect to the assembler functions just now we have discussed. Okay, so what are those difficulties? One such difficulty is a forward reference. Okay, so what is that difficulty? Okay, as you know that these are all the assembler functions. Okay, so all of these assembler functions can be easily accomplished by sequential processing of the source program one line at a time. Okay, so all these functions can be easily performed by sequential processing of the source program one line at a time, except the second function. What is that second function? The second function will create a problem or difficulty. What is that second function says? Converting the symbolic operands to their equivalent machine addresses. Example, translating the RET ADR to 1033 at line number 10. Yeah, line number, this is RET. So this will create a problem. Okay, that means the translation of the addresses, however, presents a problem. Okay, so how do you know that problem? Let us illustrate with an example. Okay, so consider a small code snippet, not a complete program. Okay, so this code snippet will illustrate the problem. Okay, so what is that problem? Assume that the assembler will start translating this source program sequentially, one line at a time. Okay. See, when it comes to line number 10, at line number 10, what is the instruction we have? STL RET ADR. Okay. So what is this STL instruction is doing? It will storing the linkage register with the content of the symbol RET ADR. So what is this RET ADR? RET ADR, it is defined at line number 95. Okay, it is a one word variable. Okay, so this instruction at line number 10 will create a forward reference. So this creates a forward reference. So what do you mean by forward reference? A reference to a label that is defined later in the program. Okay, so if you try to translate the instruction at line number 10 sequentially, line by line, no, then we could not process this statement. That is the instruction STL RET ADR, we could not process. Why? What is the reason? We will be unable to process this instruction at line number 10 because we do not know the address that will be assigned to the RET ADR. So the thing is, we know the object code or machine language equivalent of STL instruction, this opcode. So what is that? It is 14. Okay, but we do not know the address assigned to this RET ADR. What is that address? 1033. Because this the value or the machine address for this symbol RET ADR is defined at line number 95. Okay, see, it is defined at line number 95. So but when when the assembler is processing the line number 10, okay, it will be unable to get this value because this value of RET ADR is defined later. It is defined later in the program. So this will create a forward reference. So we cannot, the assembler cannot translate the machine or object code completely for this instruction. Okay, so that is the problem. Okay, that we will encounter. Okay, if you try to make only one pass over the source program. Okay, then how to solve it? The question is how to solve it. What is the solution? Okay, so due to this reason, most of the assembler makes two passes over the source program. Two passes in the sense, two moves. Okay, which are those two passes? Pass 1 and pass 2. It is also called as first pass and the second pass. So in first pass, what we'll do, we will scan the source program for all the label definitions like this. Okay, so we have the labels in the program now. So the assembler will scan the source program for all the label definition. So see, the first is a label which is assigned the address, the 1000. Then similarly, RET ADR is a symbol which is assigned the address 1033. So like that. So the assembler will scan the source program for all the label definitions first. Okay, or the address assignment. Okay. Okay, how it does? Because it knows each instruction is how many byte instructions. Okay, if you know that this STL instruction is a 3-byte instruction, no, you can easily get the address of the next instruction. Okay, so what is the address of next instruction here? STL instruction is starting at 1000. Obviously, what is the address of next instruction? Anybody? STL is a 3-byte instruction. What is the address of next instruction?
1003.
Good. 1003. So like that. So you have to assign machine addresses for all the instructions or the labels. Okay. Then, so that is what we'll do in the first pass. Okay. We'll assign machine addresses for all the labels. Okay. And in the second pass, we'll perform the actual translation of the source program into the object program. Okay. Because we'll know the machine language equivalent of these mnemonic opcodes as well as the machine addresses for all these labels. Okay. So then the assembler can completely generate the object code for each instruction. Any doubts here?
No, sir.
Yeah. So the problem that we'll get when the assembler makes only one pass over the source program to translate the source program into object code is forward reference. Forward reference is nothing but what is the definition? A reference to a label that is defined later in the program. Then, in addition to translating the instructions of the source program, the assembler must process statement called the assembler directives. Okay, so what are assembler directives? They are just instructions to the assembler itself. Okay, they direct the assembler to perform certain operations. Okay, and note that these assembler directives are not translated into machine language equivalents or the object code. They are just instructions to the assembler itself. Okay, so which are the SICK assembler directives that the assembler needs to process? Okay, so assembler will not convert these assembler directives into object code. Okay, but it needs to identify the assembler directives. Okay. So these are the assembler directives. Start, it will specify the name and starting address for the program. End directive indicate the end of the source program, and optionally it will specify the first executable instruction in the program. That means the address of the first executable instruction in the program. And then byte, it is used to generate character hexadecimal constant, occupying as many bytes as needed to represent the constant. Then the word directive used to generate one word integer constant. RESB is used to reserve the indicated number of bytes for a data area, and RESW reserves the indicated number of words for a data area. Okay. So, in addition to translating the source program into object code, the assembler needs to process these statements also, the SICK assembler directives. Okay. Then, so once the assembler translate the complete source program into the object code, okay, then finally the assembler must write the generated object code onto some output device, say the hard disk. Okay, and this object program will be loaded into memory for execution. Okay. And what is this object program contains? So the object program contains 3 types of records. Okay. So that is the object program format. Okay. So this object program contains 3 types of records, which are those: the header record, the text record, and the end record. So what this header record contains? Header record contains the program name, the starting address of the program, and the length of the object code, the complete object code. Okay. Then the text record contains the translated machine instructions, that is the object code. Okay, and the data of the program, and together with an indication of the addresses where this object code will be stored. Okay. And the end record marks what? The end record marks the end of the object program, and also optionally specifies the address of the first executable instruction. Okay. So that means it can also specify the address where the execution is to begin.